What's going on, Uncommon World? Hey guys, this is Coach Clavon. It's an honor and a distinction to be with you guys again on a wonderful Uncommon Monday. Hey guys, this is episode 26. We are fired up, we are excited, and we're going to be consistent. As we've promised, we're going to continue to bring you uncommon material in the form of uncommon men from all over the world. We're going to talk about success. We're going to talk about power. As Dan Putnam always says, success leaves clues. So we're going to drop clues every single week, guys. But I'll tell you what, if you are watching this on our YouTube channel, we salute you, we thank you, and I want you, hey, don't forget, subscribe to the channel, not now, but right now, okay? Like the broadcast as it's going through, man, share it, and do the same thing if you're on one of our social media handles. Share the broadcast, like it, if you're on our Facebook group, or whatever the case may be. Hey, guys, I'm so excited, man. We got a great guest this evening. Before I bring on our guest, let me bring on my co-host. You guys all know him and you all love him. This global icon. What a great guy, man, with a heart of gold. My partner, Mr. Dan Putnam. Dan, are you out there, partner?
I sure am. Can you hear me okay?
Loud and clear, Dan. What's going on?
Man, just a lot of amazing things. You know, I love these uncommon Mondays. A great opportunity to give out some more nuggets, some more clues on the success in life, and like we talk so often. Success is a journey. It's something that really, I think it's a decision, and that's really what we're trying to point out here with this Uncommon Men podcast, is to let people know that this is a process, it's a decision, and you're the only one that can make it. Far so often we think of success as maybe luck, or something that we can't do, or we don't have the right parents or the right upbringing, or something like that, and it's out of our grasp. But as you're seeing in these 26 episodes, there's uncommon men of all different backgrounds, from all over the world. We've had some that came to the U.S. at 18, 19, 20 years old, didn't know any English at all, and still figured it all out. And so really, I'm excited to keep on giving out this information and helping as many people as we possibly can. Just got back from some events in Atlanta, Georgia. As you know, Clavon, you came out there also talking about Uncommon, getting some things going. It was kind of cool. They were having a basketball tournament. There was, I don't even know how many teams. There was 100 teams total, but there was many teams staying at our hotel, and was nice to be able to have an opportunity to have a couple discussions with some of the coaches, have some discussions with some of these young men, and you know what? I think a lot of people are open for the message, are open for the concept and what we're doing here with Uncommon. So I couldn't be more excited, and let's go ahead and get this thing underway.
Yeah, awesome. Yeah, Atlanta was amazing. And maybe we'll get a chance to speak about some of the evolution and some of the revolutionary things that happened with the new products and scientists flying in from India. It was amazing. But yes, Dan, let's do it, man. Tonight we have the exciting honor to talk to this gentleman, the Mindful Man movement, the man behind the movement, the mindset self-discovery coach, Mr. Drew Darney. Drew, it's a pleasure to have you on Uncommon Mondays. Thank you for taking time out of your schedule to join us this evening. We have a lot of great questions for you. Want to hear your story, buddy. And it's I'm gonna be disciplined, and we're gonna go in order, because I got some questions just about this, self-discovery coach. What a profound title. Got to know how you got there, but we'll get there. And why Mindful Man movement. What a great title. It looks like you're inspiring people to be uncommon in your own way, or at least attracting the uncommon tribe in your own way. But Drew, if we can get started this way, buddy, who is Drew Darney? I mean, can you just give us some insight on where you were, born, what city, what state? What was it like growing up, parents, siblings, any situations in your adolescence that helped shape you to getting into the space that you're in now, all the way up to, married, children. Just give us some insight on your background, buddy.
All right, appreciate it. Thank you so much. I'm grateful to be here. I am thrilled, and I'm proud of you guys for doing what you're doing. We men need to bond together, and as I call it, redefine strength and embrace purpose. And no better time than the present, gentlemen. Drew Durrani, Mindful Man Movement. I'll tell you, I born in Brooklyn, New York, in 1968. And parents, dad was from Boston, mom was from Brooklyn, and they moved to the suburbs of New Jersey when I was 2 years old. And we're in the same town I've been in most of my life, Hohokus, New Jersey, a town not many have heard of, but it's close to Manhattan, in the suburbs, and it's the only town, I believe, in the country that has 2 hyphens. So a little trivia there. But went to middle school here, went to Bergen Catholic High School in Oradell, New Jersey, played varsity baseball there, and I went to Fairfield University in Fairfield, Connecticut. As I say, I followed what my parents taught me growing up, that life is linear. Now, when they taught me that, they meant the best. And I believe when parents, and many parents, teach their children that if you do A plus B plus C, D is going to happen, that life is a straight path, and do the right things. And I think it's meant well. It's meant to protect us. And I think it's parents are hopeful that that's the way it's going to be. And for the most part, my life was linear until it wasn't. And as I say, life happens. And depending on where you're at with your self-awareness, life either happens to you or it happens for you. And for me, I'm 55 now. For 50 years, as far as I can remember, life was happening to me, the victim mindset, right? The last 5 years, life is happening for me, more so a growth mindset. So I'd love to take you on that journey, because it's been an unexpected, circuitous route. And it's been a route that I do not regret anything. I would not change anything. As painful as a lot of it has been, it has molded me to be the man I am now. And if I change 30 seconds of my past, I'm not with you gentlemen right now. And I guess that would be the first message, is if we have an opportunity to speak with our younger self, give him advice. Don't expect him to take it, and really don't want him to. Ultimately, the advice I would give my younger self now is the advice I give my older self 10 years from now, hoping that the Drew at 65 will take the advice I'll share with all you guys today. So, after, I did the college thing, I did graduate school. I actually worked at the university after I graduated. Right upon graduation, I was a psychology major. And it's interesting, though, growing up where we lived, it was, as far as boys go, you're going to be a police officer, a doctor, a professional athlete, you give you a policeman, you'd have 5 or 6 things that people said, do this, do that, do that. And we just followed suit. At the time, I didn't realize that greater than 50% of our belief system, our belief about the world and a belief about ourselves, is formed by the age of 7 to 10. And by the time we're 18, about 90% of our belief system about the world and ourselves is formed, and we don't even realize that whether it's our belief or somebody else's belief. And so I remember when I was about to graduate, I had a professor from the psychology department approach me and say, "What do you want to do after you graduate?" I said, "I don't know." I started out as a pre-med concentration because I was going to be a doctor. I was going to be a pediatrician because I love children. And what the story I tell is that physics kicked my butt. I took physics in college, and that was an excuse. I recall one of the first Thursday nights in college where the biology majors were sitting along the wall in their dorms with their big biology textbook about this thick, and they're all studying. And my roommate and my 2 suite mates were getting ready to go out to party on a Thursday night. And here's Drew, who wants to do the right thing and is in the same group as these pre-med people as far as the major goes. And I look at them, I look at the friends, and I made that decision. I'm like, nah, I'm going to go out with my friends. That was basically a precursor to my physics story. So I elected to choose psychology as my major, still very fascinated in human behavior, and was really gravitating more towards the social sciences as opposed to the natural sciences, even though the natural sciences really intrigued me. And there is a link between the social sciences and the natural sciences, of course. So graduated as a psychology major. And I remember when the professor asked me, what do you want to do? I said, I really don't know. I really don't know. He said, we decided to have lunch, and he said, listen, in this program, we have a psychology lab supervisor position available every 2 years, and we always offer it to a graduating senior in the psychology department. It just so happens that it's an even year, and the guy who has it's going to be leaving. Would you be interested? So I had an opportunity to get a full-time job, work at the university, and live right around the campus, basically, in essence, adding a couple years to my college career, and the university offered to pay for my master's degree. So I took that as a beautiful opportunity. So I got my master's in applied psychology, did some student teaching, got a couple research articles, one in social psychology and one in cognitive psychology, got to manage the lab, learn about inventory control, and it was unbelievable. All along, I still didn't know what I wanted to do, though. And I remember having lunch with the same professor, and he said, what do you want to do after graduate school? I said, I'm not sure. He goes, what do you enjoy? And that was the best question anybody's ever asked me, because the route in life, when you want to do something to get paid, to, pay the bills, what a beautiful thing to be able to do something that you're passionate about, that you're good at, and that you can monetize, right? So that question lit me up. And I said, you know what? I love human behavior. What makes people think and do the things they do? I also love numbers, and I love helping people. So somehow he took that human behavior, love helping people, and numbers, and he said, how about hospital administration? And I said, hospital what? I'm thinking, just graduating graduate school, I'm thinking hospital, four walls, doctors, nurses, patients, not realizing that it is a business. There are people who work there. I said, all right, tell me more. He explained some to me. He says, you know what I recommend? You're halfway with your master's done. Write letters to presidents of university at these hospitals, not asking for a job, asking for advice and guidance. Say, I have one more year in my master's. I want to work in hospitals as a hospital administrator. What courses do you recommend I take in graduate school to help me throughout that path? And that discussion taught me that at as young an age as you can, have mentors. Have somebody surrounding you who's been successful, and we'll talk about success, in the area you want to be successful in, and go to them for guidance. Many of us go to people who will give us advice for free, and free advice usually is not good advice. And we usually get that free, not good advice from our family who has not excelled in what we want to do, right? Only we know our own dream. So I did, and I sent letters out, and this was before the internet. It was when you had to wait for replies back, microfiche, microfilm. You older people understand what that was like, the card catalogs in the library. And I did send letters back, and to hospitals in Connecticut, New York, and New Jersey. And I did get letters back from 3 different presidents at hospitals, 2 of which I ended up working at in my career. And they were to come in, have coffee, and have lunch. And I remember speaking to, at that time, the president of the Valley Hospital in New Jersey. And he mentioned somebody named W. Edwards Deming, who I had no idea who that was. He was the father of total quality management. And at the time, in the early 90s, late 80s, the United States wanted nothing to do with this total quality management. So he went to Japan and taught them total quality management, really in the auto industry. And it was really, and he ingrained in me in this discussion, this president, that every part of a process is important. All the details, every step, which means every individual who's involved in something is as important as the next person. And that really taught me so much, because as I moved up the ladder, the corporate ladder, I always remembered the people I started with, the people who got their hands dirty, who did the work, you know? And so I went back to graduate school, and I took a lot of TQM, Total Quality Management, organizational psychology, and I really got to understand human behavior and the thinking behind decisions in the corporate world through a professor who was an adjunct professor who had a real job, and he came and taught at night. So that was fascinating. So I got that degree, and I did end up starting my healthcare career at one of the first hospitals, of one of the ones where I did get to talk to somebody at lunch and guide me. And I worked 6.5 years there in inventory control, inventory management, in the purchasing department, and then I worked over in the operating room. I got to trade the jacket and tie for scrubs, and I got to learn along with the doctors and nurses what was important for them in order to find out what was important for the patients. And that was the start of my healthcare career. And so I can pause there if you have any questions, or I can keep going. I can go a little faster too, whatever you like. Whatever you like.
Yeah, Drew. So interesting. It's kind of funny that you mentioned that you went to college looking at pre-med. I wasn't looking at pre-med, but when I first went to college, I wanted to be a chiropractor.
Interesting.
And I played a lot of hockey growing up, and our coach happened to be a chiropractor. And that was back in the time that chiropractors did much better, because they could bill the insurances, all of that.
Right.
They put people on almost a never-ending series of coming back and getting the adjustments and all of that, and the insurance is paying it all. Now chiropractor is a little bit more difficult job, but it's kind of funny. I started my own business in college and started to do quite well come my senior year, but I was like, man, I've got to graduate. And so I literally, my senior year, I looked through the entire student book to see what I was the closest to graduating in, and it happened to be psychology.
Interesting.
So I was interested in psychology, so I took just for some of my just the elective courses and stuff like that. I took general psychology, sports psychology, and started to dig down some of these rabbit holes of like NLP. And one of the main guys in the nation was a professor for NLP. One of the main practitioners and educators on it happened to be at the university I was going to. So he was pretty knowledgeable in that. And it kind of got my mind thinking of, just how powerful our brain is. I didn't dig like super, super, super deep into the NLP, but that really got me into placebo and anti-placebo.
Interesting.
Which also I think is all kind of tied together with just showing how powerful our brain is, how powerful our mind is. And so I just thought that it was interesting that, we both went kind of in the, semi-medical field, and then ended up in psychology. But it's something that, I think it really is interesting to me, knowing how the mind works, knowing how important the mind is, that, I wish everybody could kind of learn that information so that they know how much power they have as a human being, how powerful their brain is, I just got really fascinated on how in the world does either one, the placebo or the anti-placebo, how can they spend these hundreds of millions of dollars on a drug and can barely even beat a sugar pill?
Absolutely.
Or vice versa. How do they spend hundreds of millions of dollars on a drug, give them the actual drug, and not get the reaction or the benefit? I mean, it just is crazy. And I think that it's one of those things that, when we're young and we have these dreams of what we're going to be, whether it's an astronaut, whether it's a fireman, whether it's a singer or an actor or an actress, and all of these, and we have these great ideas, and then going to school, the teachers start to put ideas in our head, and then our parents start to put ideas in our head, and then everybody starts to put ideas in our head until we start to believe them and realize that, well, maybe I can't do all that. Maybe I just need to get back on on course here, and
Mhm.
graduate high school, go to college, get a degree, go find a job, work for somebody else, don't cause any waves, don't think too much, don't think outside the box. And so anyways, I just wanted to kind of throw that out there because I thought it was interesting and I was literally looking also, I'm like, okay, with a bachelor's degree in psychology, what can I do?
Yes.
And there, obviously I could just go into sales because a lot of the bigger corporations and stuff like that, they don't really care. Like if I wanted to go into insurance or something, a lot of them prefer that you have a degree. They don't necessarily care what the degree's in. So psychology I thought was kind of good. And then I could maybe, parole officer or something like that, but they still wanted you to go and get, probably at least you didn't necessarily have to go to PhD, but at least get your master's degree or something like that, and then start working your way up. But I decided to just, go into business, but it definitely did help me a lot of realizing how much power we have with our mind, with our mindset, how we can kind of switch how we perceive things, because that's another thing that I think is so scary and such a detriment to most people's success, is that concept that perception is reality. And really it's perception is your reality.
Absolutely.
It's not actual reality, but people perceiving that, no, this is just how my life's going to be, and giving up on their dreams and stuff like that is can be a sad thing. And that's really what we're trying to do here with this movement, is get people dreaming again, bring hope, let them know that, what, all these things are a decision, and where you are right now today is an exact result of the decisions that you've made, the
100%.
thoughts you've had, the actions that you've taken or haven't taken over the last several months, years, or even decades. And so,
absolutely.
But yeah, it is interesting. And I love how you brought up that, a lot of times people think of hospitals of just all these doctors and nurses and surgeons and stuff like that. But not only as a business, it's a massive business.
It is.
So it's kind of cool to, get and see how all this stuff really works and get in there. So that's all I wanted to bring up.
No, I'm glad you did.
I don't know if you had anything.
Oh, Dan, I got a lot to say. You meant the term uncommon is right up my alley. So there's many places I can start. I will start with.
What we'll do, Drew, is I'll tell you that I think that when we unfold our 5 key questions,
yes,
you'll be able to find just all the substance in the world, man. And you can take it wherever you want. But I think the 5 questions will just lead the conversation really
absolutely well. I'm willing. We're ready, willing, and able, Coach. Bring it on.
Probably cover your whole story, buddy, because at the end of the day, as you just hit on the nose, I mean, you guys yourself, Dan, psychology degrees. I had a chance to travel around the country a couple years ago.
Yeah.
Drew, I was training at a lot of top corporations, and I was dealing with CEOs and high-level supervisors and managers. And I had an array of topics to train them on. These little business classes that last all day, business seminars. The number one request, for everyone from Halliburton to Amazon, what they wanted for their top leadership, the number one topic was emotional intelligence.
Well, okay. All right.
EQ, and I got to learn a lot about how important it is to understand how people think the way they think.
Absolutely.
Everything that you guys probably learned on a high level with the psychology degrees. I just saw that was the wave coming in. Right. So, when we talk about this uncommon, movement, it is getting into the mindset of so many men, particularly and males around the country. Yeah. So we want to start off here, if you don't mind, Drew, a little bit of a shift, because, we kind of define success. Right. And I love the way Dan put this together. He'll put his spin on it in a second. But success being starting with where you are from a health and wellness perspective, right? Okay. I think we all learn to kind of put spirituality first in one way or another, family. But when we start thinking about success as an individual, we're convinced, man, that your mental health, but your physical health, right? It's got to be right there at the top of the list. So, can we just jump right there? How do you feel about health and wellness
Mhm.
As it pertains to health for men, for males,
Yes.
is there any specific regimen that you partake in?
Mhm.
As far as diet, exercise, what has that meant to you? I know you're an athlete growing
Mhm.
up. Just
Right.
talk about that as it pertains to success.
Absolutely. That's a good question. And it's been it's been fluid in my lifetime, and it's interesting based on what's been going on in my life. And I could say that being a high school athlete, I was very dedicated to my trade, and so it was a lot of agility, a lot of weightlifting and running, and for me, it was the team sport. I needed that connection to the team as opposed to just the individual. And when I left high school, I did try out for the baseball team as a walk-on in Division I at Fairfield, and I got cut. And I remember the comment before we even got on the field by the head coach saying that he felt I was too short to play Division I baseball. 5'5". I probably stayed 5'5" until right now. And that hit me. And that did shake the confidence. So it'll give you an example that I played varsity baseball, high level in high school, at a very well-known high school in sports. And then I go here and the comment is about something that I cannot change. I can't change my height. I can change what I do up here with that. And I busted my butt those first 2 days of tryouts. I got cut. Wow. And that I could have gone back. Now I don't like to always say I don't regret not going back because it's the decision capabilities I had at the time, but I didn't go back and try out sophomore, junior, and senior year. Wow. I allowed that comment and the result of the tryouts to allow me to give up. Mm-hmm. I did. And that was probably the start of when I would meet resistance, I would try to push through. And if it didn't work, I'd leave. And there ends up being a pattern in my healthcare career with this happening. And even right now as an entrepreneur, I'm determined not to give up the Mindful Man movement, as challenging as it is to be a solo preneur. So as far as health and wellness, the physical aspect was always number one to me. I never thought about up here. I just did what boys and men were taught to do. Suck it up, man up, no emotion. You don't need to ask for support. You can do it yourself. And all of that did put limits on me. When we're born, we have no limits, right? God gives us no limits. We're born with no limits, and we're taught by people to put limitations on ourselves. Can't do this, can't do that, don't do this, go in this direction, you should do this, you should do that. And that started with me in that college experience with the baseball coach, and kind of led me each time, like even the physics thing. I didn't know if being a doctor was my belief or somebody else's belief system of what Drew should do. Right. And so during the course of college, 18 to 22, I'm looking to find myself. Where do I fit in? Where do I belong? And I didn't realize my mental wellness was being greatly affected at all. I was focused on that physically how I was. And I remember my metabolism started changing junior year, where I started gaining weight after eating McDonald's. And it was the physical change in my body that started to make me the confidence start to waver. And then I started to thinking about mental wellness, while I was taking all these psychology classes. And so it was really interesting that first and foremost, between 18 and 22, I'm thinking I'm invincible physically, right? And then when the metabolism changed, now there was a crack in my armor. How did this happen? No one prepared me for this. For this metabolism change. And so I started to shift a lot of my thinking about mental health and wellness, and taking the psychology classes and learning that I can control what's up here. I started changing the thoughts from limited back to limitless until I got into corporate and the healthcare field, where that manipulation up here got me back to the work inside our box.
Yes. Let me pause you there for a second, Drew, because you and Dan have so much in common. Dan was, and I'll let him tell it, real serious about individual sports and team sports in high school and college. And I want to see how he relates to what you're sharing as it pertains to the discipline and the ups and downs that come with, the fitness as an athlete. It started there for him as well, I believe. Dan, is there some insight you can share from what Drew is sharing?
Yeah, it's interesting. I guess I was lucky to be on the other side of it at 6'4". I never had anybody say. I guess if I was maybe going for basketball or something, they maybe would have said that I was not tall enough. But you know what? For me, I really had to switch my mindset on that whole concept of winning and losing. And a couple of the sports I really got into: ice hockey, American football, wrestling. So a couple team sports, and then wrestling, an individual sport. That's probably one of the I don't really know how to put it. There's something about getting on a mat with another male, everybody watching you, and winning or losing. Losing isn't a whole lot of fun in that sport, but it really did a lot of good for me with mindset. And learning that concept and switching the mind instead of winning and losing to winning and learning, and understanding that if you never lose, then you're not going to be able to improve. I think that there's a disservice a lot of times, especially when you make that jump from high school to college. If you were the best at your high school, and then you get into college, I've seen it so often that people just give up. And they have the skill set, they have the talent, but as soon as things get tough, they've always been better than everybody else because maybe they were at a small school or something like that. So it was really interesting, Drew, in college athletics. A lot of the superstars from the smaller schools and the smaller towns came in, and they didn't succeed. They are the ones that kind of worked themselves out of the system. And then it was some of the guys that were like the biggest schools that were like a backup to a superstar that went to Alabama or something. And then this person, goes to a little bit smaller school, or the people that, weren't quite good enough for a Division I school, that they go to maybe a junior college, and then they're transferring over after 2 years at a junior college. And then you're like, man, all of these guys are good. And that's something that can really take a lot out of you when you start to get those doubts.
Absolutely.
But I love what we're talking about that, because it does get to be a habit that as soon as you get that resistance, you kind of, move to the path of the least resistance. And so many people do that. And I found myself getting there also when, started playing some junior hockey at a high level. Thought that I was really good, grew up in Wyoming, and then started to go to where some of the better players were. And then I'm like, man, it really is tough when those doubts start to creep in, and then it gets even worse. I'm a big believer of, we have two main things as human beings. We have our beliefs and we have our doubts. And where things get tough is when we start believing our doubts and doubting our beliefs. And that's kind of where, people start to give up and quit. And so before we go on to the next subject, Drew, are there any mentors, any books, any podcasts, anything that you listen to on either physical health or mental health and wellness? And any books that you recommend, any podcasts that you recommend, any mentors you've had?
I mean, I do want to touch on the whole aspect of the brain. Dr. Joe Dispenza, I love his stuff, and kind of addressing what you mentioned, and it's in terms of what I'm learning now from Dr. Dispenza, is when we're in the 18 to 22-year-old, the decision part of our brain is the prefrontal cortex. That's where we make our judgment, our decision making comes from. And most recent data is for men, it doesn't mature until we're in our early 30s, 30 to 33, and women, it matures about 7 to 9 years earlier than it does for men. So I want you to think about at 18 to 22, when we're finally finding people challenging our ability and saying we're not good enough, the part of our brain, the brain that we use is our amygdala. That's our fight or flight, right?
Yeah.
So we decide, oh my gosh, there's a tiger there. Do I run or do I fight it? It's an either or part of our brain. We're making decisions at 18 to 22. So it doesn't surprise me, based on what I know now about the human brain, that I didn't know back then, that unless you are an uncommon individual where you could think logically with the amygdala, which is nearly impossible, that you don't do anything except for fight or flight, right? And so I think at that point, and it's a good question about the mentors, when you're 18 to 22, that's when you need that as a man or a boy, a male mentor like the college professors I had or the high school coaches who could guide me and say, don't give up, right? If we don't have that type of individual, we're relying on our amygdala, which doesn't have that, what I call the freeze in between the fight and flight. The freeze happens from our prefrontal cortex that you two and I have now. Right? So definitely Dispenza. A book I read when I was working in the hospitals that had nothing to do with the hospitals, but was through the leadership that I was doing, is The Speed of Trust by Stephen Covey, the son of the Franklin Covey. Yeah. How trust is the most important piece of any relationship. Right. So that was one. I just finished reading Think and Grow Rich, where I've talked to people who are in personal development a lot earlier than I have. I've only really gotten into the personal development books and stuff in the last 5 years after my life went in a tailspin. And but Think and Grow Rich, it's really helped me because that has gotten me back to what I was learning in psychology, that I can control what's up here with my thoughts. And now I tell people that today starts now. Today starts now. Every second you say today starts now, that the past doesn't define you. So definitely Dispenza, Speed of Trust, Think and Grow Rich. I'm now reading Mark Manson's The Subtle Art of Not Giving a.
Yeah.
Because what he's saying there, he's not saying don't care about anything. He's saying only give a you know what about the things that you can control that are important in life. So I'll never say that there's a magic pill. It's these combinations of the stuff I've read over time. And really, I had to be willing and able to change my paradigm. There's a book called Paradigms. I forget the author's name. I have it over there on my wall. But and the author says the only way you can have a paradigm shift is you need to be willing and able. Have to have both. There are times in life that we're willing to shift our mindset and we're not able to, and there are times we're able to that we're not willing. Wow. You got to be willing and able. So I'd say Paradigms is another book you got to read. And I can go on, but it's all about, with me, I'm reading everything I can about self-discovery, discovering what you can do, which is nearly unlimited. And I'm working on aligning my brain, my heart, and my gut, because they do all talk to each other.
You know, Drew, we're going to get deeper into that with I like to call them pillars.
Okay.
The pillar of the uncommon foundation. Mm-hmm. And right now we're just going to go ahead and shift perfectly into the second one. And it is a shift, right?
Yeah.
But, you know, here's how this uncommon thing unfolded for me, because it's such a blessing to be a part of this podcast and to be with Dan in this space, because at the end of the day, we found ourselves talking about freedom. And Drew, what does it take to look in the mirror and really see a man? You know, we don't get as deep and political as we probably could, but the emasculation of men and the lack of men being men in this country and around the world, someone's got to say enough is enough. Oh yeah, and let's create a blueprint, and let's create, you know, and then you get the finances, and for me, this is where the freedom is. Absolutely. I understand the health and wellness. I understand the mental health. From my background, where I come from, poverty or lack or financial despair. I mean, that's the enemy, right?
Mhm.
And so the term financial literacy is so important
Mhm.
because it's got all these wonderful words connected to it, like leverage,
Mhm.
words like residual income. And
Mhm.
we try to come on here and tell people the difference between residual income and linear income.
Mhm. Mhm.
Conversation about financial literacy being,
Mhm.
hey, where are you when it comes to investments?
Mhm.
Are are you spending your money? Or are you spending the money that your money's making?
Mhm. Yep.
To do something that's bringing in a residual income to pay your residual bills.
Right.
That's where
Mhm.
the freedom is. And so, Dan's, obviously lived it from this perspective, and
Right.
amazing take on financial literacy. But I want to ask you,
Mhm.
where are you as it pertains to the difference between linear income and residual income?
Mhm.
Huge impact on your life, and financial literacy,
Mhm.
investments, leverage. We consider that uncommon.
Oh,
And
yes.
where are
Yep.
you with Drew?
I'll tell you, I love this question, and I pride myself on being authentic. My three standards are authenticity, integrity, and my truth. And I have just found those in the last 5 years because I allowed them all to waver. And here's the truth: I have a very poor relationship with money, and let me tell you why. And it's exactly, you guys are going to see why this is. So, knowing now that tying your self-worth to external circumstances is the most unhealthy thing you can do in your life. I, for the longest time, have defined my success based on how much money I was earning. Okay. In the healthcare field, comparison is the thief of joy. I would compare myself to other executives. And if they would make more than me, in my mind, they were more successful. So I am working as diligently as I can in the last 5 years to break some really poor habits that were taught to me in our education system.
Mhm.
Now, breaking 35 years of this, I think, brainwashing mindset that I learned about the linear income. Don't take risks, work for a company, be loyal. My dad worked for IBM for 35 years.
Hmm.
So I was following what my dad had mentioned, and he has since passed away. And about a month before he got sick, he told me he was proud of me because of everything that I had gone through. And it was divorce, fired from my last hospital job. My son had suicidal ideations, and my dad unexpectedly got sick and passed away. 9-month span, 2018, 2019, which is what put me on this movement I'm doing now. And he had told me, Drew, I know you're not happy, and I always told you not to start your own company. Do what makes you happy. Your mother and I will support you no matter what. And that was what I needed at age 50 for my dad to say that. All right. And then I started on what I'm doing now, and then he passed away. So I'm on a mission to complete. Well, we never really complete what we're up to. But the point is that when I went into psychology, he said to me, will you go into business? I'm like, Dad, I want to help people. He goes, you can help people and still make money. And I will never forget that comment. And to this day, right now, be doing what I'm doing, I am helping people. And I haven't brought in the finances that are going to help me be financially free and have help take care of my kids when I'm gone. Because I've only been doing this for the 18 months. And I vowed in the last 18 months, I want to create a strong foundation for my company. So when I put heavy stuff on it, it doesn't collapse. So, but the financial literacy piece, we don't teach that to our children in the school systems. I remember in elementary school, we did learn, and you're talking about 1970s. I remember in 6th grade, we did have home economics. And half the year was learning how to cook and clean up. The other half was checkbook. I remember in fifth or sixth grade, they would have a checkbook and taught us how to write checks. What was one of the first things the school system got rid of? They got rid of home economics. They got rid of shop. We used to have shop the other half of the year. I'm building stuff. I'm sewing stuff. The powers that be, when they got into our school system, ruined it. And the same powers that be, I call them the three evil entities. And yes, I'm uncommon because I would get in trouble a lot in corporate for opening my mouth. But the three evil entities, when they entered healthcare, they ruined healthcare financially and the health piece. And that was the government, the insurance companies, and the pharmaceutical companies. And it may sound like I'm veering off the financial literacy piece, and I'm not, because the powers that be don't want us to heal. They don't want us to heal naturally, whether it's physical, whether it's financial, because when we are financially and health-wise interdependent on each other and nature, it doesn't help the powers that be make money. And so my concern in this country is that because we are breaking down the foundation of this country and we're creating divides, we, meaning the powers that be, are creating the divides. They're putting labels on us. They want to separate us. So you got me fired up now with this, because they're trying to separate us by gender, separate us by ethnicity, religion, political beliefs, anything they can to divide and conquer. One of the first things they got rid of in the school system was learning about how to invest your money and create residual income rather than linear. All these kids learn about now, we're grooming kids in high school to become college students and then to get jobs. And what are colleges? What do they measure when the kids are graduating? Not graduation rates anymore. They're measuring what percentage of kids get jobs, not entrepreneurship, get jobs in companies. And that's how they're rated now on how good a college it is, you know? And this is what's happening in this country. So yeah, the financial literacy piece, I am working for myself to break bad habits myself and teach my three kids, 2 boys and a girl, 18, 20, and 22. They're on the verge of, going through the same stuff I went through. I want them to at least know what's out there so they're not surprised like I was.
Exactly. Wow. Dan, I tell you, I know, we shared a lot so far on this topic, and we're going to move on to topic 3, but I don't think there's anybody that I know who has a better overview of, Dan, the reason why I say this is because, we're talking about financial literacy. We're talking about leverage. We're talking about, things I hear you say. I don't want to steal your thunder, but don't, spend the money that your investments make. Try living off of that, high level stuff, man. Residual income. But Dan, the one thing about you've helped, after living it, you've helped thousands of people experience it as well.
I mentioned something very quickly though, Clevon, with Dan. Where all my money's tied up? IRAs that I rolled over from 401ks and 403bs in these hospitals. I was encouraged as a young employee, the best thing to do is invest more of your money when you're young. I have over $500,000 in my IRA that I can't touch now at age 55. And if I do, I get penalized by the government.
Yeah.
They didn't put any of that money in. I did, and the hospitals did. So I didn't learn the diversification in terms of liquid assets and stuff that's going to be tied up until I'm in my 60s. If I had known then what I know now, I would have done stuff differently. So Dan, go ahead. You guys both, you teach the audience that don't listen blindly to everything you hear. Check it out.
Yeah, it's interesting that you say that, and I'll keep it short so that we can get on to these next questions here, Drew. But I just kind of lucked into this. My very first course in college was called Intro to Investments. So I didn't have any great ideas. I wasn't thinking about residual income. I didn't know about residual income or any of this. And so the first day of that, it was literally my first course in college. Was that was the very first class that I went to, and when they handed out all of the syllabus and stuff like that, there was a sheet in there that said how to retire a millionaire, And that got my mind spinning. And at 18, you needed to invest $75 a month. They were, just for the demonstration, they were saying that you would get a 10% annual return, even though that's no guarantee.
Right.
It is possible. And so I literally looked around the class. There was probably about 60 kids in that class. And I thought to myself, man, first day of college, I just learned how to retire a millionaire. I wonder how many kids are going to do anything like this. And so invest $75 a month, 47 years, and end up with more than $1 million. And so I got home. I called my dad. I said, hey, how does this work? What do I need to do? He said, look in the yellow pages, call a financial planner. I called a Franklin planner, came over to my dorm room, walked me through some ideas. My last name's Putnam. They had some Putnam funds. So I picked 3 Putnam funds that he recommended to diversify a little bit, $25 in each one. And what's interesting, I still have those same 3 funds. I still put aside $25 in each one. I've diversified a lot. And I started to learn more about leverage. So this was like August of 1992. In college, I do this. And then in February of 1993, I was introduced to the style of business where you can build distribution networks all over the world.
Love it.
So just kind of a concept of, hey, you market a product or you market a service, kind of like the insurance industry or the real estate industry. Then you can also go and find other people, help them get started, who can find others, who can find others, who can find others. And so with that, I started to think, you know what? All of success is about leverage. And when that $75, I'm leveraging time and I'm leveraging money.
Brilliant.
But that's 47 years of time and $75 a month. And so when they showed me to buy some products or services at, let's say, around that same price, $70, $75, $100, and then find some other people, then I started to say, you know what? Now I can leverage time, money, and effort. And over a 2-3 year period of time, 4-year period of time, I was able to start making some significant income, seeing some other people make significant incomes. And now we've helped several people make over $1 million their first year with a $50 to $70 monthly investment in themselves. So, but I don't think I would have been that open to that. I don't think I would have paid any attention to it if I just wasn't just kind of lucky that I was looking for some elective classes and I saw Intro to Investments, and it just kind of, that's kind of interesting to learn about. And then I in February, I had one of the guys in a dorm downstairs from ours said, hey, there's a meeting at this hotel tonight. You want to go check this out? And I'm like, well, what is it? And they're like, well, they're going to go over an opportunity to make some extra money. And I'm like, yeah, I'm interested in making some extra money. So let's go. Dan. And it was those two things.
Unbelievable.
And Drew, if I wouldn't have started then, I look at now and just say, if I erase that out, which is hard to do because I started when I was 18.
Yes.
I've done it for the last 30 years.
Right.
But I don't think by the time I was married, had kids, stuff like that, if I would have got started then, I don't think I would have.
Things would have been, yes, you're right. Things would have been different.
A good job. If I wasn't making no money and life was just horrible, I maybe would have, looked for some more options and found something. But they say that the number one killer of greatness is being good, having a good job.
That's complacency. Yeah, that adds complacency. Dan, what you said is huge because had you not been we don't know what we don't know, right? You're a college student, first class, you walk in and you hear, or you are offering these electives and that says Intro to Investment. Now, honestly, that is a beautiful mandatory elective that every college should offer to every single student who's starting their freshman year, and it's not happening. So by chance, you were at a university at that time going in to see what electives are available, and you saw that. Now, half the kids in your class probably saw the same thing and didn't do what you did, right? Opportunity plus action equals success in this kind of formula, right? They all had the same opportunity you had. You acted on it. Not everybody had the same opportunity you had, because we don't know what we don't know. And unless somebody introduces you to intro to investment, how the heck would anybody else know about it unless it was introduced to them? Unless you have this inquisitive knowledge at age 18 to go, let me go look into this investment thing if you never heard it. So it cries out for, we have an education system that there's an opportunity to offer intro to investing to every single, heck, do it junior year in high school, do it sophomore year in high school, do it freshman year in high school. Why don't they?
You know, that's a good question. And that's exactly what I've been thinking, Drew. And I literally have been for maybe the last 10 years or so, just kind of watching things happen, and the school districts start eliminating everything that you talked about. Yes. I mean, we had wood shop, we had auto mechanics, we had we had a class in high school where you literally went and built a house. So that they would have students go build a house, and then they would sell it to somebody in need for basically at cost, because you're getting free labor from all the students, but all of the different things that you could learn, and that was common. And as you mentioned, the home ec and learning how to cook and learning how to do stuff. So many people don't have any clue how to cook anymore. And everything's just kind of going against us. So I've been sitting there saying, man, you know what? Somebody needs to do something about this.
It has to be us.
Yeah.
And I'm waiting.
And I'm
it's
waiting.
Our generation.
And I'm waiting.
None of these kids had that. So we're the last generation to keep this going, or it's going to be gone forever. We got to do it now, you know?
And that's when I finally just said, you know what? When I heard that this is acceptable, that I had a friend of mine's son got expelled from school because he got upset when a furry, it was 100% acceptable, went under the desk and bit him on the leg, and he got mad about it. And the teacher did nothing when this kid goes under the desk, bites him on a leg, because they identify as a furry.
Oh, God.
And so they wear like dog ears and stuff like that to school, go around growling at kids, biting kids. They can pee on the floor, bring litter boxes in.
Oh, my God.
And another friend of mine got expelled for saying, hey, what's up, dude? To somebody who decided that they're not a boy anymore. They're identifying as a female, and he called them a dude, which offended him. And he didn't ask for the proper pronouns of what to say. And he got expelled from school for saying, hey, what's up, dude? To another male in school. And that's just, it wasn't like meaning it derogatory. He didn't know that he was identifying as a little girl all of a sudden. And so that's the whole thing why we're so passionate about this movement and getting in there. And I said, you know what? I don't think anybody's going to do anything. So I'm going to do it. And we're going to go down, work with these 16, 17, 18, 19, 20-year-olds, introduce them to residual income, introduce them to what they're capable of as a human being, to provide the mentorship, to provide the system, to provide.
Good, Dan. I'm proud of you, man. I'm proud of you. Keep doing
really
it.
What this whole.
I'd love to be part of that too, because my mission in life is to reduce the divorce rate in this country, reduce the male suicide rate in this country, and mitigate family financial loss in this country. We take men out of the family, and all three of those things are happening. Yeah. So if there's anything I can do to contribute to the education of financial literacy and standing up for yourself and redefining strength and embracing your purpose in life, I want to do it, because when I slap movement after the mindful man, it's not just words for me. I want to meet and surround myself with people like the two of you, because you guys are courageous. That's what courage is about, right? Courage is not a lack of fear. Courage is doing something in the face of fear.
doing it anyway. Hey, Drew, let's keep the train going, brother. And
Let's do it. Go ahead. Ready for number 3. Ready for pillar 3. Come on.
3, 4, and 5, and we've touched on 3. You know, Dan is very clear on the mission of being an uncommon man.
Yeah.
The success is freedom is literally mental health, physical health, financial literacy, and being a winner, being a boss.
Yes.
And then and then these other pillars, especially the next 2, are kind of how you accomplish it.
Okay.
And we've been talking all night about personal growth and development.
Yes.
And I just wanted to ask you one question.
Yeah.
We talked about mentors. We talked about books. But when that coach told you you were too short to play baseball as a freshman and you didn't try out sophomore, junior, senior year, one thing I didn't catch was, that was a heavy blow. And maybe self-esteem. Where did you get the strength back? Was there a moment? Yeah. Was there a mentor? Was there a book? In that category of self-esteem and someone telling you what you can't do, what happened? Did you channel that energy into other success, or how did you defeat that season of that communication being in your mind?
Yeah. That's a good question. When he said that was in the classroom before we went out on the field. So I was determined to prove him wrong. I was in the outfield, and when I went out there were 4 other outfielders trying out. They all had D1 scholarships. They were all 6 feet or taller. So the one area where I excelled was my speed, and I kept up with it there. It was up at the plate, the distance I could hit a ball is where they kind of made that decision. So you know what? I realized at that point that I can play ball over the summer when I leave, and I did. I played ball up to age 22 in competitive leagues back home. Didn't have to be in college. So I never gave up the baseball. I just figured, you know what? I'm here for my academics, and I have a future academically, and I have interests. So it wasn't that I necessarily gave up trying out. I didn't have to prove to myself that making the baseball team showed that I was successful. I also, probably earlier than, again, we talk about the prefrontal cortex, I realized that I could do my best ability-wise and probably would not outperform the 4 guys who had the D1 scholarships. And I'm cool with that. And it wasn't because of my height that I wasn't able to. They had more ability, and they put a lot more into their game than I had been doing. I knew that. So
you were able to detach.
I was. I did. I did detach it.
Had you learned about detachment as it's in all of the books we read, or what kicked in that detachment?
No, what kicked in is basically, in my head, I called the coach an a-hole. Right. He doesn't know who I am. He knows that I'm 5'5". He doesn't know me. So that's his issue. Yeah, was I pissed off in the beginning? Of course I was. But you know what? I had nothing to prove to him. Ironically, I do go know the guy's name to this day because, it's, and in any event, no, I moved on. I moved on because I thankfully at that time, I didn't define myself by my height because I was successful in academics, girls, sports, friends. So no, it didn't. And plus once you move on and you start to do different things and you start to succeed and celebrate those wins, that's what builds the confidence. And now ultra amount of confidence, especially going into healthcare, almost too much confidence, aggressive versus assertive. So yeah, no, I didn't let that change me.
Well, I just want to ask you, and I want to ask Dan as well, because you're both very accomplished. How important is personal growth and development to a human being, but specifically to a male in this current climate of where we are in the world today? Just the idea of continuous growth and development.
100%. I think it's the most important thing we can do. I have talked with many a man, clients of mine too, in coaching, who have all the money they need to be happy, and they're not happy. I say there's a circle of life. We have about eight pie pieces of our life. One is money. Then you have love, spirituality, and family, and many men had the same mindset I had about money equals success. And so many men I shifted, I've learned that it's not. So many men are at the pinnacle of their career as far as advancement and financial, and they are miserable as human beings. And they haven't touched on that personal growth and development because they don't know how to do it, because no one ever showed them how to start. I'm here with that mirror to help them find their blind spots. So personal growth and development, especially nowadays, especially for men, is huge, because right now we are raising weak men. We are in need of strong men who want to be with strong women, because once you have a strong man who desires to be with a strong woman and they're strong together, power in numbers, they raise strong kids. You raise strong kids, you have a strong family, you're going to build strong society. So this is the most important thing, is personal growth and development. I call it, we need mirror accountability as opposed to window accountability. It's too damn easy now looking out the window and criticizing and judging the people you see outside. A lot more challenging to look in the mirror and ask that person in the mirror, are you being the best version of yourself? Are you living the life you want to live, or the life you believe somebody else wants you to live? Number one pillar right there, personal growth and development, because that will enhance the physical attribute, your mental wellness, and it also help with the financial, because we can manifest. We live life opposite. We think we have to have money in order to do something so we can be happy. The proper order of manifestation is be who you are. And that's where personal growth and development help. When you be who you are, like do things in service and kindness, then this stuff comes to you. I'm relearning 50 some odd years. It's only been the last 5 years I've been working on this. It's a challenge busting out old habits. That's why we got to start these kids young. Absolutely. Number 3, huge pillar there, my friends.
Yeah, absolutely. It's so funny because you touched on 4 and 5 and your comments, so it's really interesting. I just wanted to ask, Dan, anything you want to share as it pertains to why?
Yeah, I think we've talked a lot about it throughout the whole hour and some minutes. But the only thing I do want to really emphasize is that the knowledge doesn't mean anything without action.
There you go.
I see far too many people go down the personal growth and development realm, read all the books, listen to all the people, go to all the events, and never take action. And so I would much rather have somebody take a lot of action and do less books and less personal development. Find 1 or 2 and just push those principles. You don't have to know every single principle in the world in order to create success. You can find 1 book and go all in, take massive action, and follow that. And then once you start to get the success and things start happening, then you can try a little bit more, see some more. But that's really the only warning, because I know some friends of mine that they're like professional personal growth and development. They know every book. They've been to all the seminars. They've paid hundreds of thousands of dollars. And then they still are just kind of lost because they don't implement what they learn in books. So I think that as you're reading something, you should take notes, and in those notes, you should have an action plan. What am I going to do every single day? With this information that I just learned, what am I going to do with it?
Yep. Yeah, I agree. The when we read the books, we're reading about the what and the why, and we need to implement. And I think but the term development does mean you are improving, and the way to improve is to implement what you learned. And yeah, that is the key. But when you talk about growth and development, just within those words in the English language, that means take action.
Yeah, that's true.
It means take action. You need, and a formula that I talk a lot to my clients about is that when you live in isolation, you create inaction, and that creates depression or a lack of intestinal fortitude. When you have connection, and connection leads to action, and connection meaning like what we're doing right now. This leads to action, and action leads to desire and faith. So, Dan, I agree with you 100%. You got to implement what you learn. It does take connection with people who are like-minded, where you can say, well, how do I do it? Yeah. And I would contact you, Dan. Dan, how do I do it? I just read these books. It says to do this, this, and this. How do I start?
Yeah. One of the things that I would break down with let's just say you start a business, and I literally break down what are my income producing activities. So what are the things in this business that are actually going to produce income for me? So let's say as a realtor, the income producing activities is going out and meeting as many people as you possibly can, listing houses, showing houses, and focusing all of your time on those things. Or at least, so many hours of networking so you can meet more people, so many hours of, maybe putting out flyers and door knocking and introducing yourself and all of those things those things are important. And far too often people in business spend, like Brian Tracy, somebody that I've followed quite a bit, and he talks a lot about the 80-20 rule, and basically says, you can throw that in anything, but if you throw it in time management, 80% of all time is just completely wasted.
That's true.
And so they really talk a lot about figure out exactly for what it is that you're doing, what are your income producing activities, and you need to spend at least 80% of your time in those income producing activities and move forward. But so I think that's a lot of information on personal development. I think that what you said I do like, because the whole thing of personal growth and development is taking action. Success is an action process. It's not just learning, it's learning and action.
Right.
Awesome stuff. Hey, Drew, as we come into the fourth quarter here, and you mentioned this with the, not the window, but the mirror, concept, this whole thing of accountability.
Right.
I know, throughout my life, every institution I've ever seen, I don't care if it was a hospital or a church or a sports team.
Right.
I watched my father run a mom and pop health food store my entire life. Any type of committees I've ever seen, if there's no accountability, they tend to always fall.
Yes.
In our industry that we share, if there's no systems and no accountability, there's failure. And the accountability tends to be the fuel for the systems.
Yes.
To maintain. So I just want to ask you, obviously it's very important. That's why we have it as number 4.
Right.
And sometimes have to be held accountable. How much personal growth and development we obtain. It just seems like there's always that weak point, and so how do you feel about accountability? What do you use for yourself? Things that you've led. Can we just talk about that briefly before we get to our final pillar?
No, absolutely. Accountability is crucial. I can only say that in my marriage that ended up in divorce, at the time, I did a lot of victim and blame stuff. I now know that I was 100% accountable for my behavior, and my ex-wife was 100% accountable for her behavior. I am 100% accountable in every decision I make. Yes, there are things that could have pushed me in one way or another. Ultimately, it was my decision. So I'm 100% accountable for where my life is right now, whether or not I like where I am, right? I'm also accountable, and I owe it to myself to do things differently, to change my world if I want it changed. So accountability is crucial, and there's a term that I use often with everybody who listen to me, and it's about not compromising your commitments. And that means not necessarily not compromising your commitments to others, not compromising your commitments to yourself. I'm accountable. If I make a commitment to myself, I'm accountable to come through, because if I compromise the commitment to myself, I'm showing a lack of self-respect, a lack of self-trust, and a lack of self-love. And boy, does that knock your self-confidence. So if I say I'm going to do something, that is the integrity piece in the standards I told you about, my authenticity, my integrity, and my truth. So accountability, all these pillars are huge, and you can't pick one better than the other. They're all have the same weight, and we need to do them all at the same time.
That make you uncommon. Hey, Dan, what's the relationship between accountability? I thought about this as Drew was speaking, and responsibility. How do they dance together in your thought process?
You know what? I think everything in life is about taking responsibility. I think that we need to understand that we're responsible for our own happiness. Nobody else is responsible for our happiness. Happiness is a choice. Peace and calmness is a choice. Success, we're responsible for our own success. The good and bad things happen. That's just part of life. At the end of the day, no matter what happens to us, we have decisions to make. And then we're responsible for those decisions. We're responsible for how we let other people affect us. And I think one of the things that has been the hardest for me is not focusing on things that are 100% out of my control. I mean, if I'm trying to control the uncontrollable, I'm just going to have a miserable life. And that's the thing in a relationship. I'm not responsible for my spouses or significant others' happiness. I need to focus more on being the best I can be. And part of that is being kind, hoping for the best, listening, those types of things. That's part of just being the best person that I can be. So I really think if everybody focuses on themselves, working on themselves, wanting the best for others, that whole concept of always leave them better, meaning in every interaction, if I have a goal to leave them better, make them smile, make them laugh, give them a compliment, then I'm also always going to leave them better. And that's really the whole thing. But when I really look at accountability, other than self-accountability, if I need an accountability partner, then there has to be a system. There has to be a goal or a desire that I've let them know about, that I want them to help me stay on track with. But at the end of the day, what I look at, self-accountability, self-respect, just that same thing that Drew said. I mean, if you knew somebody and they are constantly lying to you, they're constantly disrespecting you, they were constantly saying they're going to do something and then they never did it, that would be a person that you probably would not like. And yet we do it to ourselves every year with these New Year's resolutions. And the next year we have the same ones, and the next year we have the same ones. And then 100 times throughout the year, we say, okay, I'm going to do this on Monday. I'm going to start this on Monday. I'm going to do this. I'm going to whatever it is. And then we make all the excuses in the world. And that's why you really, if you're just looking at the masses, the 8 billion people in the world, you have to create more of a systematic approach and then have somebody to help hold you accountable to the system. And if you look at that in business, you look at that in life, you look at that in everything, a good example in business would be the franchise approach. So obviously there's a lot of benefits for that franchise, because first off, if I didn't like it, if I didn't think that it was going to be successful, I probably would not buy that franchise. So I'm buying it thinking that it's going to work, having confidence that it's going to work. But then also they're not going to allow me to screw it up. And so many people screw up a good thing. And so, like, for example, if the three of us decided to be partners and start McDonald's, and Clavon comes to me and says, man, I was messing around in the kitchen the other day. I made this sauce. It's absolutely incredible. We should start throwing it on the Quarter Pounder. It's going to sell like crazy. And maybe it is an incredible sauce, but McDonald's is not going to allow us to do that, because if we did it, then every single one of them is going to do it. And then I go and I order a Quarter Pounder, and then I get this, and I'm like, what in the world is this? So you want that consistency, and what creates consistency is being held accountable to a system. So if you look at the largest churches in the world, why somebody can go to a church this part of the the world, and then they can go to the complete other side of the world and go to that same church, and it's going to be run kind of the same way. They know what they're getting. And that's what's always created the biggest businesses, the biggest organizations. It's organization and it's accountability. We've talked about accountability and things like the armed services. When you have things that other people's lives depend on you doing your job exactly the way that you're supposed to do it. So when they know that, if they go to war, they're doing all these other things, and somebody doesn't wake up in time, and somebody doesn't do everything the way that they should, people are dying that shouldn't be dying. And when it's that, they have accountability. Your accountability to this person who's accountable to this person who's accountable to this person. And those are the organizations that have had the most success. But what I look at it in business, you can't really hold anybody accountable if you don't have a system to hold them accountable to. But I think it all starts exactly what Drew said. It all starts with that mirror accountability,
right?
And starting to quit breaking promises to yourself, quit lying to yourself, quit teasing yourself and saying you're going to do this and then not do it. That's why there's that book, Make Your Bed or whatever. And they literally did a study and found out that just by making your bed every single morning, you have like a 200% greater chance of being a millionaire than the people who don't. And it's just getting these small wins and starting to see, yeah, I can do it. I can do this, getting organized, putting together a schedule. And so I do think that the very first thing is becoming accountable to yourself, because nobody's going to follow your leadership if you don't even have self-respect, that you keep your word to yourself. Why am I going to listen to Clayvon? Why am I going to listen to Dan or Drew if they don't even keep their own promises to themselves?
Exactly.
And so, accountability is key, but I love that concept. And I don't think that I've heard that, just the analogy, the difference between window accountability and mirror accountability. That's something I'm definitely going to use, Drew. I love that concept. And I think it's 100% right on. And it's life-changing. If you can start making decisions and you can start making promises to yourself, your life is going to change. And one of my favorite sayings is, nothing changes if nothing changes. So if you don't start making changes in your life, changing your mindset, changing the way you talk to yourself, changing the way that you keep your own word, realizing that it's just as important to have integrity with yourself as it is with somebody else. In fact, it's more important. And yet people will lie to themselves in many cases way more often than the lie to a complete stranger.
True.
Absolutely. This is good stuff, guys. I'll tell you something. And we have an audience out here leaving some comments. They're fired up, man. They're loving this information. And let's close out like champions. I got to tell you something, Drew. This fifth pillar is really powerful. I got to tell you that, it wasn't even a year ago. I got a chance to fly out to, I think it was Mexico, real high-end, lovely, lovely resort. And Dan is the CEO of a company, Be Epic. And the reason why this is so interesting, this is our 26th episode. Right. I think I've said Be Epic maybe twice in 26 episodes, because we don't even promote, the business deal that, is where there's so much passion, right? Uncommon movement. But here's my point of bringing that up. They had leaders from all over the world, millionaire earners and thousands of dollar earners and from all over the world come in for this leadership celebratory, retreat. I'll never forget. It was Miss Putnam, Dan's mom's birthday also that weekend. And it was just so amazing, right? And for me, it was my first time seeing the culture and meeting the leadership. It was a gift for me to be able to fly in and be in the environment so I could do my due diligence. Really a real high-end opportunity.
Right.
And, one day I wasn't too big on the itinerary and syllabus. I wasn't focused on everything. I was just taking it all in. but it had to be maybe the second day there. And I just knew they were meeting in a conference room. When I got in the conference room, I saw Dan and all of corporate and his sister and his dad and his mom and all the leaders, man. And they were all surrounding these little small tables, packing book bags.
Oh, love
and
that.
book bags with, notebooks and pens and even some garments, T-shirts and socks and everything a kid would need for his first, I guess, month or maybe even, semester of school, all for kids, adolescents. So the point is, I looked and I said, wow, like this is the real deal when you talk about giving back. Thousands of book bags that then they would go and jump on the buses and deploy throughout that part of Mexico. And I was like, man, this is real leadership that I could be a part of, giving back. And, now that I've become so much part of the family and, I get a chance, sometimes we go out and break bread and I see Dan's tipping philosophy. Every once in a while we find a waiter or waitress and whatever our meal is, the total, like we tip the waiter or waitress that exact amount on their face. And, and I don't think giving back is money, just money or financial blessings. But like I said, it's giving in all different areas. So that's something that we're real serious about. And I learned it first and foremost from my mom. Just want to put that out there. She was the most giving woman I've ever met in my life. Growing up in the depths of urban America, her give and me being like, wait a minute, you sure? We can afford to give that, but, at the end of the day, I just wanted to pass it to you now, Drew, and get your philosophy on our fifth pillar of the uncommon movement. Men get rich and give back, one way or another. And so what does that mean to you, buddy? And how do you give back? And is that a big philosophy in your business model or your lifestyle?
Absolutely. I believe in the pay it forward concept. So many people have done stuff for me out of the kindness of their heart, and I give it back. I'll give you a fun example. I remember being in the car with my daughter, and she likes to go to this coffee place, drive through, and we've all heard of the place. And the specific drive through had one driveway with two entranceways to the drive-through order, and a big sign says merge. So it's every other car merging. And there was a time where I'm in line and I was in a lot longer than the one on the right side. And I didn't mind if she merged in front of me. She looked over to me and she smiled and went like this, and she allowed me to merge in front of her. So as I'm, I had already done my order, and then she did hers, and I looked at my daughter. I said, watch this. And I get up to the window and I paid my money. And I said, listen, the woman right behind me, she just let me merge in front of her. I want to pay for her food. She goes, well, sir, your thing was $15. Hers is $35. And I'm like, it's fine. I don't care about the money. I want you to just charge me whatever hers is, and just let her know. And I just drove through, and my daughter looked at me. She goes, Dad, that was so nice. I said, well, you know what? If she didn't let me merge in front of her, I want to believe I would have said it's okay, but perhaps I would have gotten upset. And I just the fact that she, out of the kindness of her heart, let me cut in front of her, I want her to be able to do that again to somebody. So if I acted the way I did, odds are she's going to continue to pay it forward. I ended up paying it forward. And so to me, giving back isn't always about the money. It's about acknowledging that we talk about self-awareness. Be aware of the good things people do for you.
Yeah.
And pay it forward. And so I as much as I can, you know what? And sometimes it's hurt me because I give to the takers too. I give. And if you give to only takers and you don't get back, it's easy to fall into the resentment piece and then stop giving. I purposely now will look at people and say, okay, everybody deserves for me to give it a shot and give. If they don't give back, not necessarily at that time, at some other time, then maybe I'll shift to give to somebody else. Because you do have to have your cup filled up by hoping other people will give to you and you can say thank you, and it feeds. So it's everybody. If everybody does that, pay it forward, just like the mirror accountability. If we all try to better ourselves, part of bettering ourselves is giving back.
You know what, Drew? I'm definitely going to pass this over to Dan, but I got to tell you, that was profound, because I just want to acknowledge one thing you said, buddy. Have the awareness of the good things that are happening around you. In 26 episodes, I think we've all been in alignment that this is our responsibility to proactively do something. Make another person smile, make another person happy, give back, be conscious, give, deposit into people's lives. But I like the way you just kind of simply twisted it. How about just being aware of the good things that are happening around you and then responding appropriately to that? That's beautiful, man. That's good stuff.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I don't have a whole lot to add, Clavon, except for the reason this is so important to me is a lot what Drew said earlier. Is it took a while for me to realize that success isn't just making money, and what happens when you make that money and then it's like you still don't feel fulfilled. You're still like, okay, I need to make more, and there's never enough. There'll never be enough money. There'll never be enough of this or that or whatever. So I look at giving back as a way to stay grounded, to have gratitude, to be thankful, just like Drew said, not just for what we're able to do for other people, but what people are able to do for us, and what they also do for other people. And that's why we don't always do it in public and show what we're doing and stuff like that, but we do sometimes just for the simple fact of somebody seeing what we're doing and then getting ideas to do the same thing. And there was a long time that we would do a lot of stuff around the holidays to help give Christmas to a lot of people in countries right here locally. I always try and focus locally with the elementary schools. We've done things to go and pay off lunch debt when kids no longer can get lunch because they're in too much debt and things like that, and library fees and just different things like that, that just to kind of end some people's debt and all of that. We're doing those things anonymously, but I do like to mention it a little bit just so that people can see that there's people doing these things and get some ideas. I just saw somebody sent me a TikTok literally 20 minutes before we started this, and it was I think it was in Colombia, and they had a table full of treats like juice boxes, some just fruit snacks, some nuts, some chips, some small candies and things like that, and they had kids coming up, and then they'd ask them a question like arithmetic or something like that, and if they answered it, then they would let them take something from the table, and I said, man, that's cool. Let's do something like that. I'll put up a couple $100 a week and go buy this stuff, and it would be good to use for your social media and get more people seeing those things and more people doing those things. And I have a friend who picked a classroom at a school in kind of a poor school. A lot of kids don't have new shoes. Some of them they go to school with holes in their shoes, hand me down from years. They're just not, and go and bought the entire class all brand new shoes, and some of these kids have never had new shoes, and just different things like that. And so that gave me a bunch of ideas. So I just love the concept. And once I realized when I was younger, I defined all success on nice houses, nice cars, but being able to go on trips and doing those things. And then I'm extremely thankful that I have had enough success to be able to do those things. Right. But also I'm thankful that I realized that that's not what life's all about. Again, money is necessary. In my opinion, life's about experiences, and so many experiences, take money to have. But I've got to the point that I almost feel happier, more excited helping somebody else get, some of those things from their bucket list and scratching off from their vision boards and stuff like that. And I've talked to some of them that had this dream car, and they got the dream car, and I was with them when we went and picked up the keys and they drove it off the lot, and how excited they were. And then I've talked to them years later, and then it wasn't too long before it was just another car.
Mhm.
And that excitement, that fulfillment of achieving that goal doesn't last very long. And
Right.
so every single person that I've really focused on, that we've become successful with, and then we focused on giving back and helping people,
Mhm.
that they all feel happier, more grounded, more fulfilled than when it was just focusing on themselves and more money and more money and more things and stuff like that. I mean, that's why you see it. I mean, part of this we don't really get into talking about suicide prevention and those we're trying to prevent all of that
Mhm.
by giving hope and,
Right.
and mindset and things like that, more so than talking about it. But when you have
Mhm.
some of the most successful people in the world, if you're defining success by having the best looking women, by having the nicest cars, by having everything, these actors and actresses and professional musicians, and that somebody would look and be like, man, these guys have everything, and
Mhm.
they're committing suicide. And
Mhm.
then you just have the everyday Joe
Mhm.
that's struggling so bad in life it's gotten so bad that it's the number one cause of death in males under the age of 45. I'd never believe that statistic if somebody didn't tell me about it. And males and females under 25. But it shows that there's different things going on in the minds of men.
Mhm.
You hit on it earlier, that most
Yep.
of the time men don't really feel like they have anybody to talk to,
Yep.
because a lot of times, and I do it sometimes, some of my friends come up having a bad day and I'm like, come on, sack it up. If I let that ruin my day, I would never have a good day. That stuff happens every day. Get over it. And that's just kind of there's that song, that newer song out, what it's like to be a man.
Mhm. Yep.
But you have 70% of suicides are males. I saw a statistic that was even sadder than that, and that's for everybody who commits suicide, there's somewhere around 23 to 24 attempts.
Mhm.
So there's a lot of people in pain.
Right.
That there's a lot of people that literally have no hope, because if I look at why does somebody commit suicide, in that time they're making permanent decisions for temporary situations,
Mhm.
and they feel like there's no hope. They feel like there's no worthwhile alternative. Life sucks, and I just went out. I'm tapping out. I'm a big UFC fan, and it just ends up, you get in a bad situation in a sport that's about fighting, and I end that situation by tapping out. And unfortunately, some people get in that situation in life that they feel like there's no other alternative than just tapping out. And so my motivation is grounding people more, getting people to give back, doing more things, realizing what we're here for, realizing who we are, what we're capable of as a human being. And,
Mhm.
and so that's why giving back has become so important for me. Wasn't always that way. I never determined success by giving back and those types of things. That mine was just like so many people's. It was
Mhm.
all, my definition of success was how much money you make.
Right.
And it's completely changed. And I want to put people in situations where they can control their time,
Yeah.
focusing on mental wellness, physical wellness, personal development, letting people know that they're capable of anything that they can imagine.
Mhm.
If life isn't going the way that you want it to go, don't accept it.
Mhm.
It's just make a decision and go from there. So anyways, that's basically all I have on that. Clavon and Drew, thank you so much for your time. We say it every week during this time of the podcast, the give back. Obviously, you're somebody who believes in giving back. We're not paying guests to join us. You're giving your time, you're giving your knowledge willfully, and man, we appreciate that more than we can express to you. Thank you so much. So many nuggets, so much great information in this hour and 40 minutes that every individual uncommon man that we've had on this podcast, I've learned from it, implemented things in my own life. And so I do this podcast selfishly also. I want to give back. I want to give as much information as I can, but I also want to get more information and see how I can continue to improve and learn and become a better person. So with that, Clavon, if there's any closing remarks that you have or anything for you, Drew, again, thanks so much for your time.
Thank you. It's my pleasure.
Yeah, Drew, please. I mean, I share same sentiments as Dan. Thank you for your time. Thank you for what you shared. I learned a lot. I'm sure that this is going to be, it's archived, so people will be able to look at this forever and be inspired. Any last remarks from you, Drew?
I just want to mention to the audience, please choose to write your own story instead of letting others write it for you. If you sit by the sidelines, somebody's going to write your story for you. And what I don't want to see happen to you is what I read in the book, The 5 Regrets of the Dying. You don't want to be on your deathbed regretting that you didn't do something to help somebody else. Spend more time with your family, sit in gratitude, write your own story. Don't let other people write it for you.
Wow. Well, I think that's a powerful way to close out. I'll tell you what, guys, tonight, like never before, we came, we saw, and we conquered. Dan's like, what in the world is that? Dan, I'm closing us out with theme music, brother. I'm trying to advance podcast. So, listen, this is an honor. I promise you we will be back next Monday with another phenomenal guest who will plant seeds and drop nuggets of what it is to be an uncommon man. So, thank you, Dan. Thank you, Drew. This has been awesome, guys. We will see you guys next Monday. We are out of here.
Thank you, guys.
Bye, guys.
Hang out for a second, Drew.